Hi, I'm Nick. I made this video because I'm a cocky asshole and I want to help my team serve better. I hope you guys find it useful. I know it has actually helped me a lot just thinking about some of these things that I hadn't fully considered. I'm going to start today with a real quick overview of spin. I think everyone on the team understands spin, but I think a quick refresher never hurts. Basically, whichever direction you brush the ball, that's the direction it will start, but the spin will always pull in the opposite direction as it goes through the air. This is why topspin is so useful, as it starts the ball high, giving us more net clearance, and then the topspin sucks the ball down. Not only that, but when the ball bounces, it bounces forward, making it seem heavy to the would-be returner. This is why a topspin lob is so much more effective than a flat or backspin lob, as it starts high, getting over the would-be attacker, drops in bounds, and then bounces away from the player that's chasing after it. No matter what spin we use, gravity is always pulling down on the ball. So when we cut under the ball to give it backspin, gravity and spin will actually fight with each other so the ball floats until the ball slows down. This is not helpful on our serves, as it flattens out our path and it makes it harder to keep the ball in. Side spin serves, usually called slice serves, impart spin on the outside of the ball, causing it to curve in the opposite direction. They're hit on a horizontal plane with gravity pulling the ball down onto the court. They're good for making the ball move and controlling the path of the ball. Brushing diagonally up on the ball produces a mix of topspin and side spin, giving us a diagonal plane with gravity pulling down on the ball. It should be noted that we only get significant pull from spin when we apply a lot of it. Applying a little bit of spin does pretty much nothing. This applies to ground strokes too. If you're only applying a little bit of spin, then you're probably wasting your time. It's pretty much a flat shot. To apply a lot of spin, we need a lot of racket speed, which takes us to the most important tip. Swing at 100% every time. When you swing with 100% racket speed, imagine you have 100 racket speed points that you can allocate to either power or spin. On a flat serve, you might go 100% power, no spin. This means we plow through the ball with the racket instead of brushing up and around it. On a kick serve, you might go 99% spin, no power. We add spin by brushing up or around the ball instead of plowing through it. Always serve with as much racket speed as possible. Always includes your second serve. If you only swing at 50% on your second serve, then you only have 50 racket speed points to spend. Everyone makes that mistake when they're just trying to get it in. Spin requires speed. Slow spin does nothing. If you want topspin to suck your second serve down and in, then you need to spin it fast. Slowing down your swing to get it in just makes your topspin negligible and your speed slow. All of our potential serves could benefit from as much racket speed as possible, so let's go get some more racket speed. Speed does not come from physical strength, it comes from the physics of proper form. I do not work out, I am not strong, and I don't ever plan to be. The trick is to treat your body and arm like a whip instead of a lever. The tip of a bullwhip can travel 30 times faster than the initial speed of a whip. Our arm isn't a perfect whip, but we can still get significantly more power than just arm strength alone. If a rod is swung at a target, it has a max speed. If the base of a whip of equal length is swung at the same speed, the tip travels significantly faster right at the snapping point. Why? 2 reasons. The whip is generally tapered. The energy used to swing the heavy part travels up the chain and gets converted to higher speeds as the whip gets lighter. This happens when we start the serve with our legs and hips. Then the energy travels up the hips to the torso, the shoulder, the upper arm, the forearm, the wrist, and the racket, getting lighter and lighter and faster. When you really want to add speed, you'll actually start down with your legs and treat your whole body like a whip, not just your arm and your racket. The main reason snapping adds crazy speed is basic physics. At the point where the tip snaps over, it covers a sizable distance in an extremely short period of time. Speed is just distance over time, so using our body to make the racket snap over allows us to access a significant amount of speed. The lever with no snapping covers a radius in a certain amount of time. The whip is slow until it snaps over at the last second, but at that point it is traveling significantly faster than the rod. Snapping produces more speed when you delay the snap as long as possible. Don't skip ahead. Let each segment of the chain pull on the next segment. For us, that mostly means keeping our elbow bent and our wrist cocked as long as possible until the final snap. But it all starts with the legs. Coil up before you start, turn your hips and torso away from the target. John McEnroe would actually start turned completely away from the court with his heels on the back line, which is extreme. Toss the ball high, extend our hips, abs, arms up and around so they can later be contracted for power. Shift your weight to your forward leg, pulling your hips forward. Then turn your hips forward towards your target and start to bend them, pulling your torso forward. Then your torso turns towards the target and use your ab muscles to pull your shoulder up and forward. Then use your shoulder to pull your bent elbow forward towards the ball, pulling your forearm. Then extend your elbow, pulling your still cocked wrist toward the ball. Now snap the wrist and rack it over like the end of a bullwhip. If you do this all together in the right order, you should be able to achieve much higher racket speeds than just swinging your arm. The biggest step to remember is keeping the elbow and wrist bent as long as possible. Even if you fail at some of the earlier steps, snapping the arm and wrist correctly will do a lot. Time your snap. You can snap your arm like a whip now, but when do we make contact? Racket speed is highest after the snap, so be sure not to make contact with the ball until after the snap. Imagine your snapping point somewhere before the ball. If you snap a towel at someone's bare ass, the snap only happens because your hand stopped moving forward. You decided when to stop your hand to let the towel snap over and hit right at their ass. Practice your snap on your toss before serving. Do a couple of whips with your arm. What does your body and your arm have to do to make the snap happen right before you get to the ball? If you're fairly new to snapping your arm, then start with your shoulder, arm, and wrist, and don't use your body yet. Eventually, using a chain that goes all the way down to your hips will make more power by using your body weight. Before we talked about extra speed coming from the tapered whip, your body is the thick part of that whip. So you'll get energy by moving your heavy body forward, and then it'll get pushed up into your lighter arm and eventually your really light racket. All of this applies to baseball pitchers. If a baseball pitcher just stood on the mound and used their shoulder, arm, wrist without the lower body, they could throw an okay ball. But once they actually coil up their lower body and use the whole thing, that's where you get the real fastballs. Note how in this sweet shirtless drawing, the guy is coiled up and his hips and torso are turned away from the target. Also note that his arm stays bent as long as possible. Before I said we had 100 racket speed points. If you work on your snap, maybe you now have something like 175 racket speed points to play around with, which is a pretty huge difference. So now that we understand that we need max racket speed and we know how to get more racket speed, let's talk about angles. Where to stand. Unless you go out of your way to slap on some bizarre inside-out spin, your serve has limitations. For a right-hander, you can hit the ball straight or you can curve the ball to the left. Incidentally, when returning a serve, you should determine their serving hand and split the possible range accordingly. A server can only surprise you with spin in one direction. Make sure you stand in a spot that allows you to hit their straight shot, but then run towards the spin side. Serving from the center in doubles limits your possibilities, particularly on the side of your dominant hand. I tend to only hit from the center when I'm playing singles or I feel the returner is leaving the center open for aces. If you prefer flat serves to spin, this might also work as you're closer to the net. Another reason to serve from the center on the deuce side might be that if their backhand return is absolutely garbage and you have trouble consistently hitting the corner from the outside. Serving from out wide not only puts you in a better doubles position, but it makes the returner cover more turf. Your straight shot can clip the inside corner, and your slice serve can achieve ridiculous angles from here. Let's talk about that for a second. A slice serve from out wide can start low, get over the net, and hit the line much more effectively than from the center. From the center, the ball would have to get over a higher point on the net and drop down fairly quickly, requiring a more vertical plane and probably topspin. From out wide, the ball can cross over the lowest point in the center and has more time to drop in on its way out towards the side nets. If you can hit a ball here and here, you've already got your opponent on the defensive. From your non-dominant side, serving from the middle puts you in a tough spot if you don't serve an ace. Not only are you hitting to a right-hander's forehand, but you find yourself running to hit a backhand on your next shot. From out wide, most returns will come back toward you. From out wide, you can still angle the serve wide, but as a right-hander, you must get as high as possible and add more topspin. Note that on the wide serves, the net is much higher on the crossover point than on your deuce serves. Don't use slice if you're aiming for the right half of the service box, as you're just making the net higher and farther at the crossover point and the target closer to the crossover point. Use straight topspin if you're going to go for wide angles on the ad side for the safest shot. So when it comes to where you stand, if you can hit aces down the center, go for it. Otherwise, there's more to be gained by serving out from wide. A quick bit on the toss. Toss the ball out in front, straight up, not back at yourself. This is a common mistake and it hurts your serve a lot. Toss the ball straight up and go get it. Don't toss it back towards yourself because you're just going to have a smaller margin for error. Toss the ball up with your arm pointing at a designated target. Each of your serves should have a plan, and that plan includes aiming your tossing arm. Some of my serves include pointing my toss at the returner. On some, I point it at the net player. On some, I toss with my arm pointed at the net post. Using everything we talked about, create a catalog of serves to go to, noting the target, where your arm is pointing when you toss the ball, the contact point on the ball, the plane or path that your ball is going to take, the racket face, etc. Here are a few of my favorites. One of my deuce side serves includes targeting the center corner. I start by standing outside, sometimes in the doubles alley, which is totally legal. I point my toss arm towards where the net player should be standing. I toss the ball straight up from there, and I add diagonal spin. The side spin curves it left, the top spin pulls it down and in. Hitting this corner consistently takes practice, but there's no way for a returner to hide their backhand from you if you can hit this serve, as they can't be standing way over here if you're serving from out wide. Another deuce side serve includes standing out wide, tossing my arm directly at the target, and aiming for the farthest corner or right at the returner. From here, as a right-hander, I still add a little bit of side spin as you can cross over the net at the closest point when doing so. Most of the spin is topspin, and I apply a bunch of it, particularly for second serves. My sneaky ass deuce slice serve is worth talking about. I stand out wide. I actually point my tossing arm toward the right net post. I know that sounds fucked up, but it is key. I then put all of my racket speed into side spin and side spin only on the outside of the ball. The spin will create a crazy curve that not only goes over the net at the lowest point in the middle, but also has a longer path to drop down and in on the way off the court into the side nets due to the extreme angle. If you attempt to add power to the serve, you'll probably have trouble dropping it in at crazy angles. Let gravity pull it down, let the side spin pull it left. This produces a lot of aces, especially with the side nets close by. My center flat serve is nothing special, though I often still add a little topspin for safety's sake. I start in the center, aim for the center. I hit through the ball, not around it. I'm pronating my racket and wrist. This keeps the racket sideways and aerodynamic during the swing, and opens the face at the last second and then flips it over after contact. With a little practice, you should be able to hit close to the center line on most of these serves. Practice the changeup for when they slide over too much. Keep the racket face open at contact and move this contact point a bit to the right. I use these two serves almost exclusively when playing singles. They work both deuce and ad side equally. My ad side slice serve is a serve I don't use often, probably because it gives my right-handed opponents a forehand. You start out wide, toss the ball with your arm pointed at the returner, make contact with the outside of the ball. As much topspin as you feel you need to get the ball down and in. The benefit of this serve is that the path crosses over the net at the lowest point. This serve is a nice change-up to my usual ad side topspin serve, which I try to kick wide. Which takes us to the ad side topspin serve. I stand outside, I toss the ball with my arm pointed at the returner, I brush directly up on the ball, sometimes making contact with the left of center, brushing a bit to the right, giving it more chance to land close to the net. I put almost all of my racket speed into topspin, and remember to keep the path from slicing, as it'll only make the net higher at the crossover point and give the ball less time to drop in after the crossover point. And last but certainly not least, I sometimes tinker with a kick serve. For this serve, I stand out wide, toss the ball towards where the net player should be in front of me, I then put all of my racket speed into brushing up on the back of the ball towards the 1 o'clock position. I put no power into aim or direction. I pretend basically that I'm hitting an extreme topspin lob at the person. I hit up with as much spin as possible, and I let the spin and gravity suck it down and in. Adding a slight diagonal spin is sneaky here. Topspin and gravity will make the ball look like it's just straight topspin, but because we brushed up towards 1 o'clock, the slight amount of side spin will make it bounce slightly different than its straight flight angle, which sometimes can trick the returner. I don't pull this out often as I don't do it all that well, and I will continue to work on this as I think it can be really deadly on some returners. So go find your serves. There are so many possibilities. I personally would like to tinker with an inside-out serve to try to get lefty spin. At some point I'm going to work that into the rotation. But try new stuff, experiment. Think about where you want to stand, think about where you want to target, think about the path you want the ball to take to get to your target. Think about where your toss arm needs to point in order for you to make contact in a way that'll get the ball there. Try to remember each of your different serves like they're on a note card in some kind of catalog with the standing location, the toss arm direction, the contact point, the spin direction, the racket face listed on the card, so that when you have bad serving days, you can go back to those cards in your head and diagnose your issues. And then on good serving days, you can just pick a card and go with it. So, in summary, toss the ball high and out in front, not back towards yourself. Twist your body, coil around, and extend upward on the toss. Always get as much racket speed as possible, especially on your second serve when you need the topspin even more. Get as much racket speed by snapping your body, but especially your arm, like a whip and not just a lever. Keep your elbow and wrist bent as long as possible for the fastest last-second snap. Practice your different serves and save all their different parameters in your head so that you have a catalog of serves that you can always go to and tinker with. I hope all this rambling helps you guys. Tennis is a lot more fun for me when I'm serving well. And I hope you guys, if you have any thoughts on this, I'm more than happy to chat about it. I'm definitely not covering a bunch of things. I didn't talk about changing your grip or using or bending your legs to get more leg drive, because frankly, I don't do those things very well. And so those are areas that I'm going to probably try to improve on. But I hope this helps, and happy hunting.